Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just get my volume here. Same story every time. I never learn. I'm never ready to go out of the gate. That's how impromptu these podcasts are. All right. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this is the Talamanca Review. It's 9:44 p.m. on Monday, the 28th of July. A lot of birthdays this month. Mine, my wife's, a lot of the nieces and nephews are July. So it's been really busy here. We had the grandkids a few weeks ago, and now we had some more of my wife's family up this weekend to celebrate her birthday. And, when these folks celebrate, the main thing is they eat. They eat, right? It's interesting, the way other societies represent their love, their joy, their appreciation of the people in their lives. They cook them food. So, yeah, we had a lot of food. And I'm just stuffed, man. Holy cow. I'm waddling around. It's like lying on your back after, the Thanksgiving dinner when you're in your 20s and you're in university and, you don't have a lot of money and you go home for Thanksgiving and eat with your family and you eat so much. You can't even move. You just got to lie on your back, stare at the ceiling for a while, and unbutton your jeans. It's like that. Gluttony is what it is, actually. I should call it what it is. Stop trying to be fancy. It's just gluttony. But in small doses, it's not the end of the world. I got to be honest with you, I really don't have anything to talk about tonight. I just thought I'd come on and see what happens and let it go where it's going to go. So let's see where this podcast is going to go. Well, I'll call this the World Podcast because I don't think the world knows where it's going right now either. I have some ideas about some plans that some people would like to see come about. But I'm not sure it's a global consensus or anything like that. I notice a lot of ironies. Ironies are kind of easy to see once you develop an eye for them. An irony is just something that is, odd. It's a kind of ideological or semantic juxtaposition. That's what irony is. Semantic juxtaposition. Or a juxtaposition of things that don't really make any sense. So I'll give you an example of what I mean. So I believe that the earth is going to a much different place. I think in 3, 4, 5, 7 generations, we are going to be living on a completely different planet. And I mean that positively. It's going to be a positive change. Now, the irony to which I refer is all the negative stuff. You could go mad reading about this stuff on a daily basis. You could lose your mind. And then you see the irony. And the irony is the vibration of the constructs that they want to put in place to rule us are too low for where the world is going. And you would think with all of their sophistry and all of their occult science, they'd know and understand this simple truth. But it appears as though they don't. They do not understand this. This is a hopeful thing, by the way. It's always a hopeful thing to see weakness or gaps or holes in the perception, the thinking, and the awareness of your would-be oppressor. It's like the Holy Spirit, the life-giving force, letting you know if you can see it. Yeah, these guys talk a mean game, but I really wouldn't worry about them all that much. They're really not nearly as dangerous as they think they are, or how they want to make us think they are. I saw a YouTube video the other day, a short. I think it was Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan showing another video. And it was a rat trap. And it was baited with a really nice hunk of cheese. And the rat comes in, looks at the trap, and goes over, and there's a pencil. And the rat goes over and picks up the pencil and brings it over to the rat trap. He uses the pencil to discharge the rat trap and takes the cheese. I've often felt in the last 5 years, 7 years, living on this mountain with an sometimes unknown number of cats. I think the most I ever got up to was like 23. I'm up to about 14 now. They're getting a bit thick. But the mountain just seems to thin them out somehow, so I don't worry about it. I don't worry about getting them to the vet, getting them all fixed, stuff like that. I just don't worry about it. My dogs are very respectful of the cats. It's interesting how animals, under human guidance and leadership and rule, I suppose. You'll have to excuse me. I've been binge watching Game of Thrones. Hey, I have a confession to make. I never watched Game of Thrones. I hate fantasy. With the only exception being Tolkien. I hate science fiction. Only exception being Philip K. Dick. Oh, Bruce, you gotta read Childhood's Ends by Asimov. No. Fuck that shit. Bruce, don't read science fiction. It's lowbrow nonsense for the most part. Give me a full-bodied story with characters that jump off the page. Make me believe they're real. They seem more real than the people in my real life. Put them in events that illuminate and illustrate to me the workings of this divine hologram we live in. I'll call that literature and I'll read it. But don't peel off some ideological concept of a story and create a genre called science fiction, which is just an excuse to postulate futures and to pollute the human mind. Science, everything about space, just, I don't know if I've said this before. Remember, this is kind of just a ranting podcast, so if you're here looking for any sense, you've come to the wrong place today. Yeah, science fiction never made any sense to me whatsoever. I understand why 2001 is the most emblematic and complete piece of disclosure ever given to us by the Black Star cult, the Black Cube people, the Hexagon people, the Saturnians. They give it all up. And in that regard, I do not see 2001 as science fiction. I see it as occult disclosure. And I don't think it's Kubrick's best film. There's so much about us that is unknown. There's so much about ourselves we don't know. You know that every single one of the great lights in the human race, whether from the Western tradition or from the Eastern tradition, have all told us that the only real pursuit that is real and meaningful is the pursuit of ourselves. And this becomes a little bit of a semantic nonsense, right? It's a big word game, self-awareness. Well, if you're listening to me right now, the part of you that is listening is you. There you go. You're aware of yourself. But that definition of self changes as we migrate through the different layers of this reality. The emotional layer, time, the mind, and the conceptual architecture of the universe, the conceptual building blocks of reality as it forms in spirit and moves to matter. And God precedes all of this, which I'm not even going to try to describe because I don't know how to do that. I don't think anybody does. But everything that comes in can be documented, can be quantified, can be measured. As our friend Judge Holden said in Blood Meridian, that which exists without my knowledge exists without my consent. And if you think about that, it's really low consciousness pretending to be high consciousness. And it's perfectly emblematic of the farce of a situation that we're in now with all these psychotic controllers. It's all based in fear. That which exists without my knowledge exists without my consent. Meaning if I don't understand you or this or that, I cannot allow you to exist because you could destroy me. And I'm not going to take that risk. That which exists without my knowledge exists without my consent. It is the ultimate prayer of fear. It is the prayer of fear Dear Satan, allow me to enforce a reality in which that which exists without my knowledge exists without my consent. It's a prayer of fear and domination and violence. Fear is the mother of violence. So the irony of our time, the irony that I find theatrical, operatic, dramatic, cinematic, and a comedy and a drama at the same time, is these pathetic worms whose time is done, and they don't want to accept that. They have no, there's no backup plan. There's no, like, you can't, when you've gone as dark as these people have gone, and when you have degraded, well, let's go back to my three terms, okay? Defiled, desecrated, and decimated peoples over generations. And you've done it by duplicity. You've done it by deception. War by deception is one of the most hideous slogans ever created. And it was created for the Mossad, but it's really been the Kabbalistic code for centuries, war by deception. Now, don't get me wrong, okay? Because I don't want it to be said that the Talamanca Review was closed-minded or chauvinistic or prejudiced or anything like this. So it behooves me to set the record straight. Our Kabbalistic brothers and sisters and their fraternal and sorority associations, the Masons, Eastern Stars, Rosicrucians, the Martinists, and many other occult secret societies, they have for some time known that they can't win. I would say almost from the beginning of their plan, they can't win. Begging the question why they do it. Well, they do it because they have no other nature to express. They have no choice. They can't do anything else. It's their only option. Is to try to control and dominate, enslave, rape, and violate the members of this race we call the human race, whereas they look like us, but I don't think they're us. So all of this stuff, this big move they're making, all it's going to do is wake people up. And I don't think they've done their calculations correctly. I don't think they're going to be, unless they have a really big surprise in the last 5 months of 2025, because we're 7 months in, right? July is the 7th month. Unless they have massive surprises in the next 5 months, none of their planning is hitting its targets. Okay, the Deagle.com depopulation numbers, there's no way they can hit their targets. No way. We'd have to go to a nuclear war. for America to get scaled back to 98 million people from its present 340, 350. And we'd have to have something similar for Canada to get scaled back from its 40 million people down to about 14, I think, is where it was supposed to settle. Those are just two of the countries on the list. We're nowhere near those numbers. I mean, the population of the United States is, with immigration, it's still growing. It's getting bigger. Same thing with Canada. It's getting much bigger by immigration. Right? Canada's over 40 million people now. A lot of people. Little India now. Little Bangladesh. Little Bangalore. Yeah. So we can see that the timing is off on that part. Now, they don't always get the timing right. The 7 countries in the Middle East were all supposed to happen in 7 years. But if you look at George Bush's first incursion, excuse me, first incursion into Iraq in 1992, I think it was, we're still not done that 7-year plan because Iran is still standing. So that suddenly becomes something like a 33-year plan, not a 7-year plan. But certain aspects they could get wrong a few decades ago. Like not getting the countries done. You could say 7 countries in 7 years was the ideal. But they weren't able to achieve it. They set the bar a bit high. But they haven't quit. They're still looking to take out Iran. Syria's gone now. So what's changed now is the imperative of the timing. So there is an imperative to the timing now. They have to get a significant portion of a non-reversible, non-negotiable, negative infrastructure in that traps us. But even then, I don't know if it's going to trap us. Right? You know, human beings are incredibly cunning. And just because you make them do everything with CBDCs, central bank digital currency, doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to form an economy outside of that. You know, an elaborate barter economy could form. You know, one in which people trade their goods and services. Now, you'd have to be able to do something to function in an economy like that. But most people can do something. Right? I have a trade. I have a profession. I can do something. A car mechanic does something. A dentist does something. All these people do something. People who do things can get together and exchange goods and services outside of a third-party transaction resolution system like money. And that's all money is a transaction resolution system. Like a guaranteed third party because the human race can't trust itself to do anything. It's really what it comes down to. Okay? Sounds weird, but that's really what it comes down to. Right? I don't trust you. You don't trust me. We need a third party in here. So government is another form of third party as well. Honest people don't need third parties. Only people practicing duplicity need third parties. So the mass numbers of death have not been hit. I don't think they're going to be able to hit them just with the vaccine. I think they misjudged the potency of that. There's no doubt that they've screwed things up for a lot of people who took those vaccines. And the shedding will screw all of us up. It's literally criminal what's being done now. I mean, spiritually criminal. Unless there's a good reason for these things that I don't understand. But I don't think that there is. And believe me, I try. When I contemplate something, I contemplate things in a state of non-judgment. So, for example, when I'm looking at a situation like what's going on in the world now, I sometimes look at it and I say to myself, well, why is this such a bad thing? Why is it such a bad thing that one small, voraciously ethnocentric people who speak their own language have set their minds on taking over the world? And they've used various forms of passive force, right? Money and debt is a passive force. You get someone in debt, you get a city in debt, you get a state or a province in debt, you get a country in debt. Because of that debt, you have passive force on the direction of that country. And all that passive force will be leveraged to the production of more money and more productivity to pay the debt and the interest on the debt and the interest on the interest, compound interest. So passive force, the secret societies have used a lot of passive force. They've engineered a lot of wars with this passive force. So we cannot say that the instruments by which they create chaos are nonviolent. They may not be the direct hand of the violence, but when they initiate currents in the pond or currents in the water, a lot of boats get turned over, a lot of people drown. Bad metaphor. It's bad metaphor night. And that's all I got tonight. It's bad metaphor. But you get where I'm going, right? Now, given that we know that there are people in the world who would like to take the world over with physical violence, up to and including maybe even using nuclear weapons, although nobody's been crazy enough to do it yet, but that's only because there's a nuclear standoff. Would China use nuclear weapons if they were the only ones on the planet who had them? Would Russia? United States did. For a big black mark. Okay? Big black mark on the United States using those weapons. Cannot be forgotten, will not be forgotten by the human race, the atomic bombs. Will not be forgotten. That whole crew out there at Los Alamos, Oppenheimer, the whole crew. Diabolical fucking cunts to every one of them. Okay? Back. Had to make myself a coffee. So the old Talamanca Review is it's doing pretty good now. I have a lot of subscribers now. I get like new subscribers on Substack daily. And some of the podcasts, and this is a curious thing why some of them go really big. Really big for the Talamanca Review would be like 1,500 views on Substack, and the same podcast might get another 500 on YouTube. And then I haven't figured out how to determine how many listeners you have on Spotify. There's a way to do it. I just haven't dug into it yet. It's an odd little podcast, the Talamanca Review. I don't think there's anything quite like it out there. It's a fireside chat. It's old world storytelling, which was our original form of communication. Most of our information was codified into stories. It's amazing how these stories and these epic spiritual poems, they can at times be remarkably specific. Remarkably specific, actually. And I'll give an example of what I mean. The Sri Guru Granth Sahib, the Sikh holy book. I've been reading that a little bit in my days. Very interesting spiritual system, the Sikh system. Very interesting. And, they say things that like everything that happens is by God's command. And in this classical Indian style of scripture from about 500 years ago, they'll give you anywhere from 5 to 7, 9 examples. By his command, the clouds. By his command, by his command. And then when they really underline something like that, and then they shift and they say, all pain and pleasure is experienced by his written command. And they're referring to the Creator here. And so when you read that, this is, by the way, how you read scripture and how you read poetry. You should never assume that anything has been put in there for what you might call a flippant reason. Okay, it especially when you're dealing with high holy books, and especially recent ones. They're all there for a reason. And so why say written command? Because they're explaining how the universe works. Okay, so this it's like an addendum to the Reality of Imagination podcasts. So written means seeded into the astral so that it has to come out on the timeline. And it would be seeded or written into the astral imagistically. The energy of the events would be seeded into the astral, and then the astral seeds them into the physical timeline. And that's the distinction they were making. All the other commands of the Creator they were talking about were way above the astral. You know? Very specific. So the irony of our time is everywhere we look, we seem to be putting up more of a frightening world. Whether it be Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and the technocrats in the White House vis-a-vis J.D. Vance. Whether it be the now clearly draconian measures that are coming in under Trump, and this isn't all about safety of American citizens, I'll tell you that right now. Some of it is. I mean, it is true that the left stopped policing. Same Canada, Australia, the United States, Britain. And this is how you know something's up, is they all kind of do it at the same time. Which tells you that they're being told to do it. Which tells you they're not running anything. They're order takers. They're not legislators. And this is elementary stuff. Everybody knows this. I don't mean to bore you on a Sunday night with this stuff. But they seriously clawed back on holding people. You can get bail for horrific crimes now and be back out on the street in 48 hours. And it was increasing the level of violence in our societies. And so a man stands up and says, I'm going to do something about this. I think they're doing this intentionally. I think the loony left has gone too far. And if you vote for me, I'm going to do something about it. And it's literally, it's like the WEF, man. Or yeah, the World WWF, World Wrestling Federation with Hulk Hogan and all those jokers. It's just a highly orchestrated fiction. Highly directed fiction. That's all it is. And they go and they do it. And so we bring this guy in, and this guy he's clearly going way beyond his mandate. You want to know what I think? I think they're trying to hit those Deagle.com numbers, but I think that there's a very strict law that they have to follow. And anybody not supposed to be here for the mass death that's coming, they're kicking out of the country. So a lot of the illegal immigrants, they're not slated to be killed. So they're being moved out of the country, not to produce a better America, but because they want to have the right people in the country when they let whatever they're going to let happen. And that could be any number of things. This is why I say faith is a necessity. And the final statement of faith is, I may not understand this, but I will not believe that evil is triumphing or darkness is won, or see it in any of that kind of nonsensical dualistic way. It's just a transformation in our reality. It had to happen. The only evidence you need that God wanted it to happen was it happened. Okay? Sometimes I get the feeling like when I talk to certain people, or I read certain people, or engage their material online, that people have this mistaken idea that growing in consciousness and coming to understand the divine currents and forces that govern this reality is a joyous thing, that it's always attended by a state of bliss, and that is nonsense. Yeah, the first thing you notice is just how corrupt human beings are. All human beings. right? Just how completely corrupt they are. So if everything I'm saying tonight is true and accurate, then all you got to do is start engineering the outcomes. If the negative structures aren't going to be able to hold, and remember, this is a very, very tricky thing for them to pull off. Very tricky thing for them to pull off, this kind of control system they're trying to bring in. Because if they tip their hand too soon and they haven't depopulated enough, well, there's enough human beings to just sort of go berserk and probably find most of them and deal with them, whatever form that might take. So they have to be very careful about not giving up the game, not letting people know what is, really going on. They're depopulating. They're forming a kind of digital concentration camp. Basically, the whole world, or at least the world that's going to fall under their control, is going to be like one giant concentration camp where you're not all put into a central location like Auschwitz. It's going to be more a distributed system. But because of their digital surveillance and various forms of technology they're here already. Another thing you have to understand, this is imperative, that whenever they start talking publicly about something, like general artificial intelligence, or what's going to happen as artificial intelligence evolves, they're not predicting. They've already done it in a controlled circumstance. They're always like 20, 30, 40, 50 years ahead. This is what DARPA does. It's a DARPA world we're coming into now. DARPA has been the arm of the deep state. Right? Or the visible aspect of it. So the fact that they're rolling it out to us, I mean, this is like the entire media structure now, and the way they structure information to feed us. It's like Montessori for adults now. It's like daycare. Right? It's all done. It's all done. This will be the end of it, though. This final conflict. This will be the end of this highly dualistic astral physical existence. And then once new consciousness breaks into the general consciousness, something higher than the astral, which gives you a much greater perspective, in this case it'll be time. So people are going to come to a completely different relationship with time in the new consciousness that's coming. And all the 4D stuff has to be dealt with. This is why there's so many people going crazy now. All the program people, all the MK Ultra people, all whatever generation they are, all of the bloodline ritual abuse consciousness, and this is what it is. They're forming consciousness, right? This is it's a spiritual system whereby trauma, they can guarantee a certain outcome in the consciousness, and if they don't achieve the outcome, they just kill you. Even their own children, they just kill them. Can always make more children. And all of these people in this web of consciousness now, they're not going to survive the frequency shift. They're not going to make it. Because they've been tuned to the frequency the world's been living at for the last 100 years, and they're not going to be able to ramp up. They're going to go crazy. A lot of them are already. Right? Very difficult time to be a person like that. Very unfortunate time to be a person like that. Yeah, so they're gonna go out like June bugs. That's a whole swatch of consciousness that was integral to the old system from World War II onwards. Right? But now something new is coming, and they don't need those people anymore, so they're burning them off. Right? So if you know somebody who's been through these programs, call them up. Have a chat with them. You'll probably be able to figure out in 15 minutes that everything I'm telling you is true. All growth is preceded by chaos and calamity and violence. Everything. Even when you're young and you start, if you're going to be one of these really big guys, like, 6'4", 6'5", you hit those growth spurts around 11, 12 years old where you grow 2-3 inches in a year. You get literal pain associated with growing. You get pain in your joints, pain in your bones, because you're growing so quickly. Right? Every form of growth has pain in it. Spiritual growth has pain in it. It's the purification process of getting all the impurities out of your consciousness, to use the alchemical model, purifying the gold. 99.99. So I just find it ironic, is all. I find it very ironic that they're putting in this incredibly negative system, and the frequency of people is changing, and the people who can accept the frequency are going to go to a whole new level of consciousness, and that consciousness will be much more aligned with self-healing. Not miraculously. I'm not talking like some New Age flake on Gaia, or some Star Trekkie who's been watching BitChute videos on the secret space program on the daily for a decade, telling you the med beds are coming. But when higher consciousness has many benefits. The liability is, you see, the worst time to have high consciousness is when you're living in a low consciousness time, because the world's just a horror show and you have to have a tremendous amount of tolerance. But we're going into a high consciousness time. I know it's difficult to see right now, but we are. It's exactly what's going on. This is that confusing year where you're regaining an understanding of yourself as you go through hormonal changes in puberty. Right? Consciousness goes through these changes as well. That's why I like to use puberty, because it's such a physical example and so representative of an initiatic experience, because it cannot be explained. It's truly esoteric knowledge, okay? Esoteric means knowledge known by initiates only, or knowledge attainable only by initiation. You cannot understand puberty at 8 or 9 years old. You have to go through it. It's knowledge by initiation only. The secret societies are the same way. Knowledge by initiation only. That's why they are esoteric. But they haven't gone to really high consciousness in these secret societies. Most of them have just been pulling their puds in the fourth dimension on the astral, addicted to magic and sex magic and all this kind of nonsense. And they really haven't grown that much, believe it or not. They're really not that advanced. You'd be amazed. So we're shooting to a much higher level of consciousness. And that level of consciousness will not be so easily controlled by fear. It'll be much more heightened intuition. Okay? You'll self-healing, where you'll just be intuitively guided on what to do to heal yourself. Right? Much more self-control, food and habits and all of these things. Much more gratitude for life, which takes away a lot of the stress in living, which also aids your health. So, I mean, what has kept people tied into this system? The fear of getting sick and not having access to the health system? Things like this, right? It's nonsensical. It's all going to go away. And a new kind of almost super person is going to emerge on the planet. And these super people are going to be able to live cooperatively in groups. I'm not talking, it's not going to be ideal. There's still going to be problems. There's still going to be ego bullshit. It's just that the collective consciousness in a certain portion of humanity will reach a point where it is just generally agreed that government is not needed. And you walk away, just like that final chapter in The Light of Darkness, about the Mexican town that fires their mayor and police force, and all rape and murder ends the next day. Police were keeping it going because they were bribed by the cartels, looked the other way, and only posed a threat to good people who tried to report what was going on, because the cops were all being paid off. That's pretty much the system with our governments now. And so when they try to enforce landholding, if people start going and squatting and building communities, they're going to try and enforce land. They're not going to be able to do it. And they're not going to be able to find police to do it. These psychopaths they've been creating in these programs aren't going to be around for them anymore. Everything is going to have to go through the human heart. And the human heart, generally speaking, will not do those things. Anyways, I'm Bruce McDonald, and this has been the Talamanca Review.